I knew something was off the second I walked past Lorraine's door and heard her say my name like it was a punchline. I hadn't even made it back from the break room before I got the email. Subject line: compliance conversation. No greeting. No context. Just an invite to her office in 10 minutes. And Lorraine? She was new. Slick hair, sharper heels, too many smiles for someone who hadn't learned anyone's name. But that smirk, God, that smug little smirk, told me everything I needed before she opened her mouth. I walked in, shut the door behind me. She didn't ask me to sit. Just looked me over like I was the weak link in her immaculate chain. "You're being flagged," she said like it was a weather report. "Pattern anomalies in your vendor activity. Nothing formal. Just internal review." I remember the way she drew out the word anomalies like she'd been practicing it in the mirror. She had no idea who she was talking to. I kept my face neutral. I nodded like a good little analyst. But inside, I was already pulling every string from memory, every override she'd snuck past policy, every fast-tracked approval tied to a vendor I didn't recognize. She thought she was setting a trap. What she didn't know was that I built the map. I didn't argue. That would have given her exactly what she wanted: defensiveness, panic, leverage. Instead, I glanced once at the badge on her desk. Still temporary. Still printed on visitor paper. Then I turned and walked out. Hey, real quick. If you're listening and you haven't subscribed yet, it would mean a lot to us if you hit that button. Seriously, 97% of people hear stories like this and forget to like or follow. But it keeps this going and helps more people find it. Alright, back to it. By the time I reached my desk, I already knew I wasn't deleting a damn thing. Let her dig. Let her search the logs. She wouldn't find what she was hoping for. Because every file, every approval, every timestamp had a twin. A shadow copy. Not hidden. Not even encrypted. Just separate. Clean. And mine. I clicked open the folder I'd named Workflow Redundancies. A harmless enough label. Inside, 3 years of version audit logs. Change histories. Admin overrides. One in particular caught my eye: vendor approval. Edgepath Sourcing LLC. Pushed through last quarter. Flagged by 2 departments. Rejected in procurement. Then magically, approved 16 minutes later by Admin Override L. Pike. She must have thought no one noticed. Maybe no one did. Except me. I downloaded the log set. Time-stamped. Chain-tracked. Verified. No edits. Just data. Just facts. And facts don't flinch. I didn't even need to write a memo. The truth didn't need dressing up. I just needed the right eyes to see it. I stared for a moment at her calendar. She had a 4 p.m. leadership sync marked Vendor Process Revamp. I wondered if that was where she planned to make her move. Frame me. Package it as a change initiative. Wipe the slate and climb a little higher. Corporate Darwinism at its finest. She had the ambition. But she forgot one thing. I wasn't the prey. I was the proof. I didn't flinch. I didn't pace. I didn't call anyone. That's the kind of thing they want you to do: panic. I just sat back down at my desk like I was logging a standard requisition, leaned into the chair that squeaks every third swivel, and tapped in the credentials they still hadn't revoked. The system chirped once. Access granted. Lorraine must have thought I was the kind of employee who cleaned up after myself, deleted files, covered my ass. She was half right. I'd never deleted a thing because I'd never needed to. What she didn't know was that I'd been keeping a private compliance mirror for years. Not because I was paranoid, not even because I expected anyone to pull a stunt like this, but because I don't trust amnesia. Corporate systems forget fast when it's convenient. Policies shift. Chains of command vanish. Approvals evaporate into gray areas. So I logged everything. Every vendor file I touched. Every override I wasn't supposed to see. Every time someone reactivated a rejected record. Quietly. Automatically. And most importantly, legally. There was nothing sneaky about it. No hidden drives. No dark web data bunker. Just a separate directory nested inside a perfectly boring SharePoint tree. Label: Redundant Logs Procurement Archive. I'd even shown it to IT once when they asked where my version control folder lived. They shrugged. Moved on. People like me don't raise alarms. We file them. I opened the folder, scrolled past last year's flood of COVID procurement exceptions, and pulled up this quarter snapshot chain. There it was. Plain as daylight and just as brutal. 7 vendors. All flagged. All blocked. All pushed through post-review by a single admin override. The signature? L.Pike_admin. No explanation. No secondary authorization. No justification logged. Just override after override like she was swiping left on ethics. I clicked on one Edgepath sourcing. It still reeked of rot. A shell company tied to a residential address in Nevada. Procurement had flagged it for missing compliance docs. Rejected it twice. Lorraine had it pushed through on a Friday night at 8:42 p.m. Who the hell processes vendors after happy hour? Then I opened another. Same story. Different name. DTI Forward LLC. Another overnight approval. I checked the metadata. Same override key. Same digital fingerprint. Like watching a magician palm cards badly and assume no one's watching. Except I was. And now that I had the full chain in front of me, I needed exactly one thing: silence. No alarms. No alerts. Just one clean surgical extraction. I created a PDF export of the full trail timestamped with embedded metadata logs. I didn't add comments. Didn't highlight. Didn't editorialize. Just labeled the file. Vendor approval override log. Q1 Q2. Like I was prepping for a quarterly meeting. Because sometimes the most dangerous file in the system is the one that looks too boring to question. I sat there, hand hovering over the mouse, listening to the soft click of keys around me. Everyone else was knee-deep in spreadsheets and lunch orders. Lorraine's office door was closed. Probably already cooking up the next phase. Setting up a call with legal, planting her story before I got a chance to open my mouth. That's what made this part feel so damn satisfying. I wasn't going to open my mouth. I was going to open a record. Lorraine's laugh hit me in the chest like the echo of a slammed door. I was walking past her office on the way to refill my coffee, and there it was, bright, unbothered, too loud for the quiet hum of Thursday afternoon dread. She was leaning back in her chair, sipping some sparkling pink drink, legs crossed like she was already 10 steps ahead in the game. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did and didn't care. Either way, her body language said it all. She thought I was already buried. I didn't look in. I didn't slow down. I didn't need to, because by then the file was already in my inbox. I'd emailed it to myself from the archive. Secure. Untouched. A perfect clinical snapshot of her audit trail since. 7 overridden vendor approvals, each one with the same admin key and the same signature of corruption dressed up like authority. No flames, no threats, no melodrama. Just raw data. That night I stayed late. Not the first time, not the last. The office clears out fast after 6. HR's gone by 5:30. IT clocks out by 5 unless the servers are on fire. Legal? Always on call, always watching. Especially one inbox, the board's shared escalation queue. It was buried behind a layer of legalese and obscurity. A place no one dared to touch unless something catastrophic or lawsuit-worthy hit the fan. I knew how it worked because I'd helped build it. 3 years ago, during a vendor investigation tied to some European subsidiary shoddiness, they asked me to help design the filter logic for incoming flags. We built it with triage keywords, routing rules, and metadata tags that escalated files straight to the general counsel's assistant. I knew what the subject line needed to say. I knew what attachments triggered alerts. I knew what metadata slipped past the CEO's firewall and landed straight in the board's overnight read ahead. I sat down at my kitchen counter, cracked open my work laptop and stared at the blank email. No body text. No signature. No plea for help. I wasn't here to plead. I was here to log. Subject line: Internal Audit Trail Vendor Chain. Attachment: 1 PDF. No commentary. Time-stamped. Sealed. Recipient: Board Escalations Legal Oversight. That was it. No copies to my manager. No heads up to procurement. No vague warnings to HR. This wasn't an HR problem anymore. This was rot at the foundation. And the only way to cleanse it was to go straight to the top with the quiet blade. I hovered over the send button, took a slow breath, and clicked. Sent. No dramatic music. No internal monologue. Just a dull hum from the fridge and the quiet knowledge that somewhere, sometime after midnight, Someone with real authority was going to open that file and feel their throat tighten. Not because of me. Because of what she did. Because I didn't need to twist the truth or embellish a damn thing. All I did was press record. All I did was notice. And now all I had to do was wait. The building felt wrong the moment I stepped through the sliding glass doors. It was too quiet even for a Friday. No boot heel clicks from the finance girls. No Bluetooth speaker playing some HR-approved indie folk nonsense from Lorraine's corner. Just stillness, as if someone had pressed pause on the whole floor and forgotten to hit resume. I scanned my badge. Green light. Still worked. The executive suite. The sleek glass corridor lined with polished offices that only the chosen few dared to enter, was sealed. Literally. Frosted mode on every window. Door access disabled. Someone had triggered privacy protocol, which I hadn't seen used since the last time legal investigated a breach involving a senior VP and a burner phone in Jakarta. Lorraine's office was dark. Not I'm running late dark. I never showed up dark. Her little jungle of desk succulents wilted by the window, like they knew something the rest of us didn't. I passed by without stopping. I didn't need to see her not sitting there. I just needed to know who was. The elevator chimed behind me, and out stepped two legal aides. Both of them carried unmarked binders and looked like they hadn't slept. One peeled off toward the CFO's office. The other went straight into conference room B, where the shades were already drawn. I caught a sliver of conversation through the half-open door. Immediate risk to audit integrity. That was all I needed. At my desk, I booted up like it was any other day. Opened the vendor dashboard. Scanned the weekly rotation. Everyone else around me did the same, except slower. Quieter. Like the air had shifted, and no one was quite sure if breathing normally would bring attention they didn't want. And then came the whisper. Tasha from procurement leaned sideways without even turning her head. Just enough for her voice to reach me without catching the manager's attention. Lorraine didn't show up for the 9 a.m., she murmured. Didn't call in. Didn't ping anyone. Just vanished. I didn't reply. Just kept typing. A blank spreadsheet staring back at me while every cell of my body locked into stillness. I didn't need to ask follow-ups. I didn't need to pretend to be surprised. Because I'd already done my part. The gears were turning, and the silence was no longer mine to break. Around 10:15, a calendar invite popped up. Weekly vendor review canceled. Organizer, HR. No explanation. No replacement. Just gone. By 10:47, Lorraine's name vanished from the Slack sidebar. Not away. Not do not disturb. Gone. Like she'd never been there to begin with. No farewell post. No email. No emoji parade of goodbyes. Just digital erasure as precise as a command line purge. And here's the thing no one said out loud, but everyone felt in their gut. No one ever mentioned my investigation again. Not HR. Not legal. Not even my direct manager, who spent most of the day pretending not to make eye contact like I was radioactive. In corporate, silence isn't peace. It's preparation. And I knew, somewhere behind those sealed executive doors, a storm was already underway. I just wasn't the one in its path anymore. Slack felt like a ghost town. Midday, you'd usually see the vendor approvals channel buzzing with passive-aggressive emojis, and someone in HR posting, yet another wellness tip, about desk stretches or lemon water. But today? Nothing. No chatter. No gifs. Just the occasional notification bubble that fizzled out before you could even click it. It was the kind of silence that made your skin itch like a pressure drop before a tornado. At 12:03 p.m., the HR weekly check-in vanished from my calendar. No cancellation message. Just gone like it was never planned. Lorraine was the organizer, of course. Her name had been on half the recurring invites in the department. Now, it was like her fingerprints were being wiped clean from the company's entire schedule grid. And then came the email. From the COO's office. Subject line. Operational continuity. No greeting, no sign-off. Just 4 sentences that tried to sound calm and failed miserably. We are currently reviewing recent structural decisions to ensure continued alignment with company values. This is a standard review. Please continue operations as normal. No action required at this time. It read like someone trying to hold a beach umbrella during a hurricane. I stared at those words with a kind of cold detachment I didn't know I was capable of. Alignment with company values. That phrase alone carried more corporate guilt than a shredded NDA. The people who send those emails always know exactly what's been exposed. They just don't know who else knows it yet. I didn't smile. I didn't react. I just marked it as read and closed it like I was filing away a receipt. The truth is, you learn a lot when you stop trying to interpret tone and just read things for what they are. This wasn't a reassurance. It was a warning disguised as wallpaper. Continue operations as normal might as well have said, don't ask questions or you'll be next. By 12:27, Lorraine's access to the internal directory disappeared. No farewell. No status change. Her profile just returned a 404. Even the silly profile pic she used, some filtered selfie in front of a vineyard, was gone. No trace. The IT kill switch had been pulled. That's when my screen pinged. Microsoft Teams. Private message. Sender: Jillian Kemp, Legal Affairs. Message: Hi Mason. Do you have 5 minutes to chat privately? No context. No subject line. Just the kind of polite tap on the shoulder you don't ignore. I stared at the message, felt my pulse slow instead of spike. Because I knew this wasn't about me defending anything. I wasn't a target anymore. I was a source. And when legal knocks that quietly, it means they already know the house is on fire. They're just trying to find out where the accelerant was poured. The meeting room wasn't even one of the official ones. It was one of those awkward micro-conference spaces they carved out of a former break room. Low lighting, a half-dead fern in the corner, no whiteboard. Just 2 chairs and a table that looked like it had seen a dozen exit interviews and twice as many corporate apologies. Jillian Kemp from legal was already there, tablet open, eyes tired but sharp. She didn't do small talk. Didn't offer me coffee or water. Just gestured to the seat across from her and got straight to it. We're not here to interrogate, Mason. I have one question. I nodded, hands on my lap. No folder, no laptop. I knew what she was about to ask, and I'd already brought everything she needed. The unaltered file, still untouched, still pristine, sitting on a read-only flash drive in my pocket like a pressure-sealed time capsule. She tapped a few keys and tilted the screen toward me. The PDF labeled Vendor Approval Override Log. Q1 Q2. Can you verify that it's yours? Untouched, accurate, and original. I reached into my pocket, placed the flash drive on the table like it was a scalpel. Yes, that's the copy I exported. No edits. Pulled directly from my version archive. She didn't question it. Didn't test it. Just nodded once and took the drive, slipping it into a secure case like it was evidence, because it was. She didn't ask about how I'd compiled the logs. Didn't press on why I had them. Didn't prod into whether I'd sent anything to anyone else. That told me everything I needed to know. They already knew. She glanced once more at her screen, and for a split second, her jaw clenched, not dramatically. Just the smallest twitch. Then she swiped to another page and didn't show me this one. But I knew. That file didn't just show override patterns. It showed connections, names, addresses, IP logs. One of the vendors Lorraine had jammed through? Linked by ownership registration to a Nevada-based firm. Guess who the registered agent was? Her cousin. Same last name, different state. Paper trail so sloppy it was almost insulting. This wasn't just overreach or negligence anymore. It was fraud. Conflict of interest. A direct violation of every procurement compliance clause we had in place. Still, Jillian didn't say it out loud. Instead, she closed her tablet, stood and said simply, "Thank you. We don't need anything else from you at this time." Not a word about what would happen next. Because that wasn't my role anymore. I wasn't a whistleblower. I was a ledger. And they were finally doing the math. The resignation email landed at 9:06 a.m. Subject: Organizational update. It was as dry as corporate toast, signed by the COO, sanitized within an inch of its life, probably passed through legal 5 times and HR 10. Lorraine Pike had chosen to resign for personal reasons, effective immediately. No farewell message. No, thank you for your contributions. No mention of the department she was supposedly rebuilding from the ground up. Just gone like a bad update quietly rolled back before the users noticed it bricked the system. But we noticed. Everyone noticed. You don't lose a department head without noise unless the silence itself is the signal. Her little clique, the junior HR analyst she used to bark at in meetings, The procurement gatekeeper she always CC'd when denying escalations went completely mute. No Slack messages. No coffee runs. No lunchtime laughter behind glass walls. It was like a nest of birds suddenly realizing the sky had fallen. By 10 a.m., I could feel the mood shifting underfoot. People weren't scared. They were watching. Waiting. Because in a place like this, leadership doesn't vanish unless something cracks all the way down to foundation. And even though no one said the word investigation out loud, you could feel it in the way folks stopped asking questions mid-sentence and just walked away. At 11:42, Tasha from procurement leaned toward me again. Same chair. Same whisper. "Whatever happened?" she said, voice barely audible. "Thank you." I didn't reply. Not out of pride, not out of coldness. Just instinct. This wasn't over, and I wasn't about to step into a spotlight when the house was still settling. Besides, it wasn't about thanks. It was about weight, finally being lifted off the backs of people who'd been ducking blame for mistakes they never made. And then, right after lunch, the real shift began. 2 calendar invites. Both marked urgent. No subject lines. No attachments. The first? Strategy Planning Internal Oversight Stream. Organizer, General Counsel. The second? Vendor Policy Review Special Session. Organizer, CFO's Office. I wasn't a strategy lead. I wasn't even mid-tier management. But both invites were addressed to me directly. No team. No department CC. Just Mason Reyes. I sat back and stared at the screen for a full minute. Not processing. Just absorbing. This wasn't damage control anymore. This was restructuring. And someone somewhere had decided that I was worth listening to. The meeting room was different this time. Bigger, colder. 2 full walls of glass overlooking the city skyline like some kind of throne room for strategy. 12 chairs, 11 filled. Everyone in there outranked me by at least 3 pay grades. Directors, VPs, and the general counsel herself, Elena Muir. Sharp blazer, sharper eyes. I'd only ever seen her in passing before, gliding out of a boardroom, guarded by 2 assistants and a calendar no mortal could survive. She stood when I walked in. Not to greet. To signal. "This is Mason Reyes," she said, calm and clipped. "He'll be advising us on compliance integrity moving forward. He has full access. Treat his findings accordingly." No one blinked. No one questioned. They just nodded like this had already been decided in some hallway I'd never been allowed to walk before. I didn't sit at the far end like I used to in vendor briefings. They'd saved a seat next to legal and procurement strategy. Close enough to see the roadmap, far enough not to be the target if things turned volatile. I opened my notepad, not laptop, not tablet. Just lined paper and pen like always and started listening. And what I heard was rot. They weren't just talking about Lorraine. Her name wasn't even mentioned anymore. They were talking about patterns. Systemic overrides. Vendor shell firms tied to more than one executive. Approvals stamped under expired review processes. A finance director who'd signed off on $1.2 million worth of pre-cleared vendors using credentials that were deactivated last year. It wasn't one bad actor. It was a culture of shortcuts dressed up as efficiency. And now they were trying to rip it out without collapsing the building. I kept quiet. I watched. I wrote. No one asked me to explain my background. No one tried to test me. Because they'd already seen the file. They already knew what I caught. What I proved. They weren't inviting me in to vet me. They were trying to figure out what else they'd missed. Midway through the meeting, procurement strategy slid a printed sheet toward me. My handwriting. My annotations from an old vendor denial workflow. At some point, God knows when, someone had scanned my archive into a working model. It was now the skeleton for their new approval framework. I didn't gloat. I didn't even flinch. Because this wasn't a win. It was a reckoning. And I wasn't here to celebrate. I was here to document. To trace the cracks back to their origin. To make sure the next Lorraine didn't get the chance to build her empire on apathy and fear. Because what they were building now wasn't just cleanup. It was insurance. And apparently, I'd become the underwriter. It was raining again. The kind of slow, steady drizzle that made the whole world feel padded and gray. Mason sat in his home office, the desk light casting a soft pool over the keyboard. A mug of lukewarm coffee forgotten next to a legal pad already filled with tight, meticulous notes. The room was quiet, save for the occasional ping from his terminal. Not the frenzied kind of pings he used to dread, just slow, deliberate alerts. The kind that meant someone was paying attention now. He logged into the new dashboard. Escalation view. Internal integrity chain. The name alone would have made him laugh a month ago. Now it just stared back, solemn and humming with access permissions he hadn't asked for but had clearly earned. His name sat fourth on the list. Just below the general counsel. No title, no flashy badge. Just Mason Reyes compliance oversight. Permanent access enabled. He clicked into a flagged log. A new one. Fresh. An intern barely 3 weeks into the job had submitted a vendor doc with the note. Unsure. This override feels off, but it was approved upstream. The override was legal. Clean. But the instinct to question it? That was gold. Mason leaned back, cracked his knuckles and started typing. If it feels wrong, document everything. He hit send. No flourish. No commentary. Just the sentence he'd needed anyone, to say to him when he first started noticing the cracks years ago. Back when keeping records felt like overkill. Back before he knew that one clean file could collapse a regime. Outside, thunder rolled low. Inside, the dashboard refreshed. New note added. Status. Under review. He closed the window. Stared out into the rain. And as he reached for the cold coffee and finally took a sip, a thought passed through him. Not smug, not proud. Just final. They thought I was forgettable. Turns out I was the ledger.